Hello, everyone, and hope you're all having an amazing day or had an amazing day, depending on your current time zone. So, today I'm going to get a little bit into the weeds regarding IEP or Individualized Education Programs, which are available in all states. This is a requirement. What it is the Individuals with Disability Education Act, or IDEA, is a federal law that requires all states to provide special education services and IEPs to eligible students with disabilities. It's a federal law, so this is something that is available in any state within the USA. It is all a part of the Free Appropriate Public Education, or FAPE, to children with disabilities. This includes any type of developmental and implementation of IEPs. Unfortunately, this is not available for private schools. This is only a public school requirement. Now, in the case of the private school actually receiving federal funding, that's a whole different scenario. So, any school that does receive any federal funding, such as the school that my daughter goes to, because they allow parents to use scholarships. So this is something that the federal government provides these scholarships, and they're allowed to use those for this specific school. So they offer specific accommodations or special accommodations for students with disabilities. Every kid that goes to this school, or to my daughter's privatized school, is allowed or given that special accommodation. Like, it all depends on obviously how much the students need it. Now, just note that this is the school she attends is all neurodivergent students, but it's all different spectrums, right? So it can be a child with severe autism, or on the lower level of autism. It could also include students with extreme anxiety, or they have a very difficult time being in the public, right? So they struggle with school. It could be a child that has some type of reading disorder. So, I mean, there's so many different disabilities within this school that, again, you could probably have a student that does well, just struggles in certain areas, versus a child that has really severe autism. So, again, it all varies. So I'm going to get a little bit into the weeds of what I've seen in my daughter's school, which is private, versus what I saw in her prior school, which was public. And I can give a little bit of a comparison because I've lived on both ends of the spectrum. I could definitely tell you what I prefer as far as school settings are concerned. I could give you a little insight as to my experience as a mother with a child with a disability, and how difficult it was for me as a mother, again with a child with a disability, to really get her set up, or my daughter set up, in the right setting in order for her to flourish as far as her education was concerned. Yeah. So hello for those of you guys that are new to my channel, welcome. My name is Kathy, and on Mondays I do videos all about fashion, accessories, just fun things that I enjoy doing to keep my mind off of the second half of the week videos, which are all about my girls and their struggles with two diseases, TSC and FSGS. TSC being tuberous sclerosis complex, or tumors that can grow in any major organ throughout your body, and FSGS being a form of kidney disease that causes damage to the glomeruli, which can lead to kidney disease, kidney failure, dialysis, or transplant, depending on the disease's progression. So if you're interested in either or, please hit the little subscribe button and hit the little bell so you can be notified on all of my latest videos. And please don't forget to hit the like button and comment below. Let me know what you think of today's video. And let's get started. Okay, so let's get into a little bit more into IEP and what it is, or how you can utilize it in your state. Now, as I kind of get into the details, I'll tell you kind of my experience with an IEP and how it functioned in my daughter's school. She actually utilized it in about I think it was about 3 schools that she utilized it for, but the main one was in her middle school years. The whole point of the IEP is to pretty much document or outline the specific educational needs of any student with a disability, and the services and supporters you receive help to achieve your educational goals. That's the whole purpose of the IEP. In order to be eligible for it, though, you have to have a disability that affects your ability to learn, and to ensure that you actually benefit from this program, right? So it's there for assistance. So it gives you longer time when you it gives you a lot of longer time to do a test, for example. It allows you to get therapy in your school setting, so like occupational therapy. It gives you a lot of time with individual teachers. They'll pull you out of the classroom setting, and you'll have more time for, let's say, you need more help with reading, you need more help with math. They'll come out and they go into the classroom settings, they take you out of your class, and they'll work with you one-on-one time, which is great. Um, it all these programs are all this type these programs associated with the IEP is great for you, right? What I found though is that in middle school, my daughter had a horrendous time. I mean, it was really, really hard for her because she was in a public school setting with limited resources, right? And typically, when your child is in a public school setting, there is a lot of children to one teacher. So if you have a kid that has really bad processing delays or just has a really hard time grasping the information at the rate that it's going or coming out from the teachers, your child's going to struggle. When you have processing delays, you need that extra time to do your work. And that's what my youngest daughter has. She has really bad processing delays, and her reception when she takes in information, it takes her quite some time to understand it and to adapt it and to pretty much jot down what she's being given, right? So it's a struggle. So with the IP that Alani had during her middle school years, she really struggled with taking in the information and working in an environment where there was a lot of kids. And she was often bullied because of her struggles, right? So a child sees someone struggling and they're just awful to them, right? So she would have to be pulled out of class, and she'll go into her therapy sessions, and she'll be taken out. I think it was about 3 times per week. So different teachers would take her out, and she has some really, really great teachers that were pulling her out. But what was happening to the school is that a lot of the bad students were being brought into that middle school. So for the first year, it was good. She was doing good. She was flourishing. But by the second year, those kids were being kicked out of other schools in the other areas, and that school was taking them in instead of um, pretty much saying no. They kept taking in the bad kids or the bad students that just were god awful. Excuse me, but they were awful. And even the principal had told me what was going on, and the main officer that was out on the grounds that was always there looking out for Lonnie would also tell me the same thing. And in actuality, he ended up quitting just because of all the craziness and the amount of students that were coming in, and they were not able to manage the behavior. So the second year, my daughter was like, I was constantly being called into the school because there was an incident. So, and she was struggling, or she'll come home upset, and we were trying to figure out what was going on. And though the IP program was giving her a little bit more time to do her tests, they were pulling her out just to help her out. They were bringing teachers into the classroom setting, helping her out, trying to get her through the actual testing and doing her work and supporting her. It was just too much for her because she also has ADHD, so her attention would go here and there and there. So it just wasn't a good setting for her. I ended up pulling her out because she had a pretty bad incident her last year. No, excuse me, it was her seventh grade year. She had an incident with another girl. The girl was constantly bullying her, and it became an incident where she got hit. So I'll be open and honest with you guys. She ended up getting hit. So I ended up finding out about it when I didn't realize that she was being bullied because nobody was really telling me anything. I ended up in the school. Needless to say, I yelled and screamed and made a show because I was really angry. And then I reported them because I said that the IEP program that was being set up there, or kids with disabilities in that type of school setting, was extremely, extremely poor. What ended up happening was that they just weren't giving the kids with disabilities the support that they needed. And they weren't doing anything about the bullying in that school. There was countless reports on the school about kids being bullied. being picked on, and it grew really bad by the second year. Like I said, her sophomore year, excuse me, not her sophomore, seventh her seventh grade year, it was probably the worst experience I've ever seen in any school setting. But yeah, so it was just a really bad experience for us. It was something that we just couldn't, no matter how hard we fought for it or how much we wanted it to work out in the school. I wanted her to graduate from the same school that she started. She was going there for years, right? Um, she was there since is fifth grade here, so she's there fifth grade. By the sixth grade, it started to shift. Seventh grade was horrendous, so that's when I pulled her out and I put her in a different school. Now, she again with the other school, she was okay. She was a little bit better, but she also struggled there too. So it really wasn't the public school system. No matter how much support she got, wasn't going to work out for her. It just didn't have the resources that she needed to flourish. No matter how much time and effort they gave to her on an IEP, it just wasn't working out. Just because she struggled to just keep her focus. Like with an IEP, you can't be pulled out of your classroom the entire day. It's just not going to happen. They can give you certain sections and certain time frames where you can be pulled out for support. But as far as like an overhaul where you're only working with different teachers outside of the classroom setting, it's not going to happen. It's not feasible for any school to manage. You'd have to pay for an individual teacher to come into your home and support that child or your child throughout that whole time frame. So I'll be open and honest. It's just not going to happen. So I found that the IEP helped her out in middle school because she did work with a lot of really good teachers where they were supporting her, but she wasn't going to be able to be successful because of that distraction outside of that. So it wasn't that the IEP was a failure. It was just the school setting where she was not conducive for her development. So yeah, that was that. I ended up taking her out and I sent her to Plato Academy, which is a charter school, just to trial it out. I've never sent any of my daughters to a charter school. I just wanted to see maybe this school would be better for her. She ended up going there for her last year. It was about half a year in seventh grade, and then the last year of her eighth grade. So with charter schools, they are required to provide IEPs for students with disabilities. Is just like any traditional public school. So they have to follow the law, obviously, all other provisions of the IEP Act, which is, or IDEA Act, excuse me. Any students with IEPs, they get evaluated. They'll tell you, hey, this is where they need to go. So it's a whole different, like you have to have an IEP meeting with the whoever's responsible there, like the assigned teacher that's responsible for all of the IEP. So just mind you, this is that they do an annual evaluation to see where your child's progressing, where she's still struggling, she or he is still struggling. So they do that. They do that as well. So, are they capable of handling or managing IEPs at Plato where she went? They did an okay job. Okay, they did an okay job. It was a smaller school setting, so that helped, right? That helped a lot. Um, the problem with Alani and what her biggest struggle was that she started that school a little later, so it was hard for her to uh, really get connected to any kid. And then when they see how she is, it's kind of hard for her. Like she struggled to make friends there. So yeah, there was those scenarios and situations because she didn't she didn't do as she didn't flourish as well as I wanted her to, but at least it was a lot less drama. Let's put it like that. Yeah. Okay. So now where she is today, right? So I ended up doing a lot of research trying to find her the best school and the best availability for her to be able to feel like she fits in, right? I didn't want her last 4 years of school to really be like awful, right? I wanted to make sure that she sees kids that are similar to her and are similar to her as far as struggling. So I ended up finding a school for learning divergent students. So this actually gave me an opportunity to finally put her in a setting where I felt like she'll feel a lot more confident, right? So the only issue is that when you do put a kid in a setting or a private school setting, they do not get IEPs. It's very different. Like again, but they are required to provide support or additional support if they are federally funded. So you always want to check on that. Like if you are interested in a private school that does offer what you're looking for, you may want to ask about whether or not they do receive federal funding, because that means that they do have to provide some form of, obviously, some form of support for your child with a disability. Now, again, if you're putting your child, like, for, I had to weigh in, like, do I care about that IEP, that I'm losing the IEP, or the fact that my child's going to go to a school that's specific for her special needs, so I know that she's going to still be getting that support. So you kind of, like, you got to just evaluate that, right? Find out whether or not this is good, this is bad, what is the preference here. Now, in my daughter's current school setting, they have LAM programs, which is language acquisition through motor planning, which is great because my daughter does. Her problem is that, again, as I indicated before, her problem or her issue is processing information. So she takes a little bit of time to understand what's coming at her. So it's hard for her to explain or express herself in the form where she's explaining the scenario or explaining the situation. So she gets really nervous. She has sometimes she has some panic attacks. Sometimes she may say something that isn't what she just struggles, right? So the LAM program has been a great support system for her, and she gets a lot of great teachers that understand what's going on. And when you have teachers that all the teachers in that school have worked with kids with disabilities, when you have that kind of setup or that kind of format, every time she touches or she goes into a classroom setting, you know what I'm saying, she has a teacher that's kind, that's understanding, that's patient, that is willing to support that child. So it's a combination, right? Auditory signals, natural consequences, language connections. This is all a big circle, right? Consistency of unique motor patterns. So you're looking at readiness to learn, you're looking at joint engagement. So this is all a huge circle, and it leads to that one language connection. So understanding what you're receiving. So this is Alani, understanding what she's receiving and understanding how to communicate and respond to that person, right? So if you ask her a question, something that takes a little bit more time, it takes about 30 seconds to register what you're giving. She might talk a little faster before the 30 seconds, but she's still registering the information that's being provided. So it takes her a little bit of time. So hearing what she's understanding, consistently addressing the question in a form that makes sense, right? Or writing down information that makes sense. So all of this is a struggle for her. So it's really important. So also being prepared to learn, understanding what she's going to be getting, right? So if you give her information and she doesn't understand what she's learning, the processing information is, it's not there. So if you're telling Alani, hey, this is what you need to do, this is how you have to handle it, blah blah blah, and she's trying to think of what are they asking me to do. So that's her struggle. So yeah, so that's another thing. Now, therapy is also offered at my daughter's school. Therapy is really important. This is a scientifically backed approach to use to improve behavior. So this is usually for children with autism. This is really, really helpful, right? What it does is it supports kids there with any type of behavioral issues, teaching them to have new skills, right? Reaching challenging behaviors, improving communication, social skills through language and behavior. It's also there to increase positive behavior and decrease those that are harmful or interfere with learning, right? So, for example, Alani has a classmate that has very severe autism. So, there's a couple of students in there with severe autism. It's not like where they're screaming on the floor or anything like that, where it's beyond manageable. It is manageable, but it is disruptive, right? So what the school does, or what they offer, is therapists to come in and actually sits with that child for the entire day of the school period, which is great. So what ends up happening is that therapist provides the support of that child from becoming too overwhelmed, because he or she is there to manage those challenges that the child might have. So if there's a communication barrier, right? If the child gets severely upset or aggravated or angry, that therapist is there to catch it before it becomes something that can escalate to the next level, because they are readily prepared to handle the scenarios in those situations. So these are things that are offered for children at my daughter's school. There's obviously a bunch of other stuff like occupational therapy if you need a psychologist to come in. Like Alani has emotional support therapists there. So there's a couple of kids, like if they become overly emotional or upset and they don't know how to handle a certain scenario or situation, the child is allowed to ask permission to go see the counselor, which is a great feature to have, so the kid can get up and go out to speak to the counselor and have a conversation with that counselor to make sure that they're addressing any issues they might have, and they feel comfortable with that. So, which I thought was great. That really helped out a lot, Alani. But I do prefer the privatized setting because of the smaller classroom settings, and the kids are able to actually, just work directly with the teachers and have that level of support that in a public school setting she never had. The classrooms were just too big. So yeah. And I think these teachers are obviously they have a lot more experience working with kids with disabilities versus versus public school settings. Okay, guys, so hope you enjoyed the video today. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to comment below. And again, thank you so much for taking out the time to check out my video. And please don't forget to focus through and evolve. Ciao.